Shut your mouth, lady. You don't belong hanging around here. Step aside before I show you what happens to people like you. Officer Craig Hollister sneers, his voice dripping with prejudice, ignoring the badge and credentials in front of him. Lorraine Mitchell stays calm, but the humiliation and fear in her nephew's eyes make the moment impossible to forget. Before we start the story, tell me, where are you watching from? And if these stories speak to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It was a bright Saturday morning, the kind of day where families flooded the local baseball field, kids swinging bats, laughter bouncing across the bleachers, and parents hustling to keep up with their little league dreams. Lorraine Mitchell, a seasoned federal law enforcement trainer, had finally taken a rare day off. She was dressed casually, but with her trademark air of authority. Black, mid-40s, wearing a fitted navy polo tucked into khaki slacks, her hair pulled back neatly. Her 9-year-old nephew, Jalen, bounced excitedly beside her in a red baseball jersey and jeans, barely able to contain his energy. Lorraine had promised him they'd watch a few games and grab ice cream after. No work, no stress, just family time. But within minutes, the peace shattered. A pair of patrol cars skidded onto the asphalt near the bleachers, sirens off, but the presence loud enough to draw everyone's attention. 2 white officers, one tall with a muscular frame, the other shorter but stocky, strode toward them like predators honing in on prey. The taller one, Officer Craig Hollister, late 30s, dark navy uniform, crisp and gleaming, badge pinned, carried himself with the kind of arrogance that made people instinctively flinch. He locked eyes on Lorraine as if spotting the weakest link in the chain of humanity. "You there," Hollister barked, voice rough, laden with disdain. "Yeah, you. What are you doing here, loitering?" His tone was not a question. It was a verdict. Lorraine froze for a second, her mind racing. "Officer, I'm just here with my nephew. We're watching the game," she said calmly, raising a hand to show her ID badge clipped at her hip. She was used to diffusing situations, but something about Hollister's expression told her that today, logic and facts meant nothing. "Don't give me that," he snapped, stepping closer, chest puffed out. "I know what people like you do around here. Think you can hang out wherever you want? Step aside." Jalen tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide. "Auntie, why's he yelling at us?" His voice trembled. Lorraine crouched down, gripping his small shoulders. "It's okay, baby. Stay calm. Don't move too fast." She could feel the tension in the officer's body, the sheer aggression, the condescending smirk that screamed prejudice. Around them, parents paused, kids stopped mid-laugh, and a few teens on their phones began filming. But Hollister didn't care. To him, the crowd was just an audience for his display of power, his belief in the inferiority of the people he was confronting. "Hands where I can see 'em," he barked, ignoring the fact that Lorraine had not threatened anyone. His partner mirrored the hostility, scanning the area, acting like every black person in sight was a criminal. Lorraine stood tall, black, mid-40s, calm but internally bristling. Her training kicked in, instincts sharp. She knew the officers had no idea who she was, or maybe they didn't care. She had spent decades training federal agents, teaching them survival, compliance, and respect for civil rights. And yet, here she was, being treated as if she were a petty criminal. The audacity of it made her jaw tighten. "Sir, my credentials," she began, but Hollister cut her off with a sneer. "Save it. We don't need to know about your fancy titles. Just step out of the way before things get ugly." His voice carried over the field, reaching parents and kids, amplifying the humiliation. Jalen squeezed her hand tighter, tiny knuckles whitening. Lorraine's heart ached seeing him scared, witnessing the very real danger of bias. "Stay close to me," she whispered. Her calm exterior masked the surge of anger inside her. She wasn't just a civilian. She was a trainer, someone who had built her life on protecting and instructing others. And she was being publicly disrespected because of the color of her skin. Hollister took another step, too close, his boots scraping the gravel. "I said hands up. You think you're smarter than me? You think you can talk back?" He gestured violently toward her ID badge, mocking it, as if mere paper could define power, and in his eyes, it meant nothing. Lorraine inhaled slowly, keeping her voice steady. "Officer, please, I'm not resisting. I'm fully cooperating." She knew any sudden movement could escalate the situation, but the officer's prejudice was palpable. He leaned in further, speaking so loud that it rattled nearby kids. "Yeah, right. Cooperating, huh? You don't belong here. You think you're better than everyone else just 'cause you train the feds?" Parents whispered to each other, some shaking their heads, others muttering under their breath, clearly uncomfortable but unsure how to intervene. A few younger onlookers were filming the incident, phones held high, capturing every second of Hollister's aggression. Lorraine's calm demeanor drew a few allies. Helen Ashford, a white woman standing nearby, stepped forward cautiously, voice soft but firm. "Sir, she's not doing anything wrong. I've seen her here before. She's a trainer. She's not causing trouble." Hollister didn't pause, didn't acknowledge Helen. His mind was made up, the narrative he believed, one fueled by racial bias, overrode the facts in front of him. Jalen whimpered, pressing against his aunt. Lorraine knelt slightly, lowering herself to his eye level. "It's okay, baby. Just stay calm. Remember what we talked about. Don't argue, don't move too fast, just stay calm." She could feel the heat rising in her face, frustration mingling with the fear that this encounter could spiral at any second. Hollister's partner finally stepped in, frowning slightly, but still mirroring his colleague's disdain. "We're gonna have to search you. Step out of the vehicle," he said, pointing vaguely toward the SUV where Lorraine had parked. It wasn't a question. It was an order, laced with extreme bias, ignoring every law she knew he was supposed to follow. Lorraine exhaled slowly, hands visible, maintaining her composure. Black, mid-40s, professional, trained in the art of control under pressure. She knew she had to survive this encounter first. But inside, anger roared. The humiliation, the audacity, the blatant racism that had no place in a public field, in front of children, in front of people who had no clue about her life or her credentials. Every step Hollister took toward her, every sneer and mocking tone reinforced the truth. No one was immune from bias. Even a black woman who trained federal agents could be reduced to a target, publicly harassed, humiliated, and almost physically restrained, all because of his assumptions, his prejudice, and his unearned authority. And yet Lorraine didn't break. Her hands stayed calm, her posture upright, her mind racing through the steps she'd teach countless agents. De-escalate first. Document everything. Remain composed, and wait for accountability. Jalen clung to her, wide-eyed, but felt some comfort in her calm. Witnesses around them recorded, captured, and whispered in shock. And in that moment, the real story began. How prejudice and authority collide, and how one woman's calm, disciplined response could expose the systemic racism hiding in plain sight. The morning sun beat down on the baseball field, the scent of freshly cut grass mixing with the faint aroma of concession stand popcorn. Kids ran across the outfield, tossing gloves and shouting at each other, oblivious to the storm unfolding near the bleachers. Lorraine Mitchell stood tall, black, mid-40s, her navy polo still crisp, khaki slacks pressed. Her hands remained visible at her sides, calm but alert, like a coiled spring, ready to react if needed. Beside her, 9-year-old Jalen clung tightly to her hand, eyes wide, heart pounding as he tried to understand why a man in uniform was shouting at his aunt. Officer Craig Hollister, white, late 30s, face red with anger and bias, paced back and forth, each step exaggerated, a display of dominance. His partner, shorter but stocky, mirrored his aggression, scanning the surrounding crowd for any perceived threats. Hollister leaned toward Lorraine, gesturing wildly, voice sharp. "I said step out now. Don't test me." His words carried the unmistakable sting of prejudice, aimed at her, dismissing her badge, ignoring her calm demeanor. Lorraine's voice remained steady, a contrast to the officer's venom. "I'm fully cooperating, officer. I'm not resisting. I'm here with my nephew." She nodded toward Jalen, who flinched as Hollister took another aggressive step closer. The officer's eyes narrowed, and he muttered under his breath, loud enough for nearby onlookers to catch. "People like you always think rules don't apply." Jalen's small hand tightened around hers. "Auntie, why's he yelling?" he asked, voice trembling. Lorraine crouched slightly to his level, keeping her eyes on Hollister. "He's just upset, baby. Remember, we stay calm, follow directions, and keep our hands where he can see them. Don't argue, just stay calm." She could feel the anger building inside her, the frustration at being publicly humiliated for simply existing, yet she masked it with a composed exterior. Around them, bystanders stopped their games and conversations, some pulling out phones to record. The field's normal laughter and cheer was replaced with hushed whispers and tense stares. A few parents stepped closer, concern etched on their faces, unsure how to intervene. Among them, Helen Ashford, a white woman in her 60s, pastel blouse and beige slacks, spoke up softly. "Sir, she's not causing any trouble. You're wrong." Hollister didn't respond. His focus remained entirely on Lorraine, blinded by bias. Hollister's voice escalated, venom thick. "I don't care who you are, you're acting suspicious. You think you can flaunt your fancy badge and walk around here like it means something? Step aside, or we'll make you." The words dripped with racism, dismissive of every credential and every ounce of authority Lorraine possessed. She had spent decades training federal agents, instructing them on handling hostile encounters. Yet here she was, targeted by someone who assumed her skin defined her character. Lorraine raised her hands slowly, maintaining control. Black, mid-40s, professional, experienced. Every movement was deliberate, showing she wasn't a threat. "Officer, I am cooperating fully. My nephew is with me. There's no reason to escalate this." But the officer's bias refused to hear reason. He leaned closer, pointing his finger, voice sharp and condescending. "Don't talk back. You don't belong here like this. People like you cause problems." The aggression was public, humiliating, and deliberate. Hollister's partner moved slightly behind him, nodding, as if every biased assumption was justified. The tension crackled through the crowd like static electricity. Lorraine's calm composure contrasted starkly with the officer's hostile energy, creating a scene that was almost cinematic in its injustice. Jalen's eyes welled up, his small body trembling beside her. Lorraine put a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, baby. We stay calm, just like I taught you. Watch me. Stay with me." Her voice, steady and reassuring, masked the storm of rage and disbelief she felt inside. She couldn't believe that, in broad daylight, she was being treated as a criminal while teaching people about law enforcement every single day. As Hollister gestured to frisk her, Lorraine subtly shifted her position, still within reach of Jalen. The officer's smirk widened, assuming superiority, failing to realize that every move he made was being watched. Bystanders whispered among themselves, the sound of their shock filling the tense air. A few teens and parents started recording, phones aimed at the unfolding injustice, capturing the extreme racism in real time. "Step aside now, or we'll take action," Hollister barked, ignoring the badge and credentials pinned at her hip. Lorraine exhaled slowly, keeping her hands visible. She had trained agents to handle dangerous situations, teach compliance, and maintain authority under fire. And she knew that exposing the officer's bias publicly, safely, was the only way to survive without escalating violence. The officer's aggression continued, each word dripping with disdain. "You think you're untouchable? I don't care about your fancy titles. You're just another problem in my field of view." The sheer audacity of it, the blatant racism, made it clear that Hollister's actions weren't about law. They were about prejudice, a display of power over someone he considered beneath him. Meanwhile, Jalen buried his face into Lorraine's side, trembling, while she gently rubbed his back. She looked at the crowd, some recording, some gasping, some frozen. She knew that witnesses were crucial. Every act of prejudice, every shouted insult, every illegal assumption would be documented. Her calm, deliberate posture was her silent defiance. The tension at the baseball field reached its peak. Hollister's extreme racism was on full display, his bias unmasked. Lorraine, composed and disciplined, had become the eye of the storm. Her calm, contrasting with the officer's aggression. Every bystander, every phone camera, every whisper would later bear witness to the injustice, showing how even a trained federal professional wasn't safe from systemic racism. And in that moment, Lorraine knew something very important. Bias like Hollister's could be exposed, challenged, and recorded. It was her training, her experience, and her resolve that could turn this humiliation into evidence, a powerful reminder that authority doesn't give anyone the right to humiliate, intimidate, or harass based on race. The midday sun had climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the baseball field, highlighting every detail of the confrontation. Lorraine Mitchell, black, mid-40s, dressed in her fitted navy polo and khaki slacks, stood with deliberate calm, her posture firm yet approachable. Beside her, 9-year-old Jalen clutched her hand, trembling slightly, eyes darting between the aggressive officer and the crowd of onlookers. Officer Craig Hollister, white, late 30s, uniform crisp, badge glinting, paced with an almost predatory rhythm, his smirk widening every time Lorraine kept her composure. "You think you can just waltz around here like it's your playground?" Hollister shouted, stepping dangerously close. "People like you don't belong in these places. Step aside before I make you." His words were sharp, laced with blatant racism, dismissing every badge and credential she held. The crowd froze. Some parents moved their children slightly back, unsure how to intervene, while a few teenagers lifted their phones, capturing every word, every gesture. Lorraine's calm voice cut through the tension. "Officer, I'm fully cooperating. There's no reason for this." But Hollister's face twisted into a sneer. "Don't give me that. You think your titles mean anything here? You're just another problem, causing unnecessary drama." He gestured with exaggerated authority. as if every step and movement of Lorraine's was a threat. Jalen whimpered softly, pressing against Lorraine's side. She crouched slightly to meet his gaze. "Stay calm, baby. Watch me. Don't argue. Don't move too fast. Just stay calm." Every word was a lifeline, a reminder of how dangerous bias could be, even when no crime had been committed. Nearby, a few parents whispered among themselves, "Can you believe this? She's doing nothing wrong," one said, shaking her head. Helen Ashford, a white woman in her 60s, stepped closer, her voice steady but firm. "Sir, she's innocent. You're making a scene." Hollister barely acknowledged her, his focus solely on Lorraine, blinded by his prejudice. The other officer, shorter and stockier, remained close, mirroring Hollister's hostility. They moved as a unit, a wall of aggression, their actions designed to intimidate, to assert dominance, to make it clear that their perception of Lorraine's race outweighed any proof of innocence. Every bystander could feel it. The tension was palpable, almost physical, a tangible manifestation of systemic bias. Lorraine's patience was tested, but never broken. She knew that every gesture, every word, every inch of composure mattered. She was not just protecting herself, but teaching her young nephew, showing him that even in the face of blatant racism, maintaining control was the key to survival. Hollister leaned closer, pointing directly at Lorraine. "You think you're untouchable because you train the feds? That badge doesn't mean a thing to me. Step aside now." The words carried both threat and prejudice, a mixture designed to humiliate publicly. His partner echoed the aggression with nods and gestures, their combined body language a showcase of entitlement and racism. The crowd was visibly shaken. Some recorded quietly, others whispered incredulously, and a few older kids muttered under their breath, witnessing authority abused. Lorraine's calmness, in contrast to Hollister's hostility, created a striking visual, a black woman standing tall, composed, dignified, while a white officer unleashed bias and aggression in broad daylight. Jalen's small hands trembled as he held onto his aunt. Lorraine bent slightly, keeping her eyes on Hollister while reassuring him. "It's okay, baby. Just breathe. Don't react. Watch how I handle this." Her training as a federal instructor kicked in fully. She knew every word, every pause, every movement would either escalate or de-escalate the situation. Hollister, oblivious to his own arrogance, continued his tirade. "You think, just because you tell your recruits to follow rules that you're safe? Not here. Not today. People like you get taught lessons every single day." The racism in his tone was unmistakable. It wasn't law enforcement. It was personal, a power play, a public shaming designed to reinforce bias. Lorraine's mind was sharp, calculating. She knew she had to survive this and turn it into leverage, evidence of systemic injustice. Each action, every cell phone recording, every witness statement would be crucial. She maintained her stance, black, mid-40s, composed, teaching an unspoken lesson about dignity in the face of prejudice. As Hollister gestured for her to move toward his patrol car, the crowd collectively held its breath. The tension was unbearable. Parents shielded children's eyes, some murmuring prayers under their breath. Jalen clung tightly to Lorraine, his little body trembling but trusting her calm. Lorraine's eyes scanned the crowd subtly, noting witnesses, capturing mental evidence, while outwardly remaining cooperative. Hollister's extreme racism continued to shine through every gesture and word. "Step aside now, or we'll take action. You think your badge protects you? Doesn't mean a damn thing." His partner mirrored the statement, creating a wall of intimidation, A public Lorraine took a deep breath, steadying herself. Every bystander, every recording, every whispered remark would later become a part of the story. Her patience and composure, even under extreme racial harassment, was her weapon. Hollister's aggression exposed his own bias fully, leaving no doubt in anyone's mind that this wasn't law enforcement. It was discrimination in action, plain and unfiltered. And as the crowd watched, phones recording, Lorraine remained calm, black. Mid-40s, in her casual navy polo and khakis, showing everyone present that dignity, training, and composure could survive even the most public and racist attacks. The moment was tense, raw, and unforgettable, an extreme example of how systemic bias could manifest, even when confronted with a professional, competent, and law-abiding citizen. The baseball field had transformed into a tense arena, the normal sounds of play replaced by a heavy silence. Lorraine Mitchell, black, mid-40s, still clad in her navy polo and khakis, stood with an air of calm authority that contrasted sharply with the growing hostility from Officer Craig Hollister, white, late 30s. His badge gleamed under the sun as he towered over her, each step deliberate, each word dripping with bias and racial aggression. Beside Lorraine, Jalen, her 9-year-old nephew, clung to her hand, wide-eyed and anxious, yet drawing strength from her composed demeanor. Hollister's voice cut through the tension like a whip. "Step aside. You think you're untouchable just because you train the feds? Doesn't matter what you do or who you know. You're just like the rest of them, problematic and suspicious." His tone carried the weight of prejudice, dismissing all proof of Lorraine's credentials, her experience, and her authority. Every bystander could feel the maliciousness in his words, the deliberate attempt to humiliate a black woman in public. Some spectators, initially frozen in shock, began murmuring among themselves. A few parents quickly nudged their children to the side, shielding them from the aggression unfolding before them. One elderly woman, Helen Ashford, white, pastel blouse, beige slacks, stepped forward with a firmness that cut through the tension. "Officer, she's done nothing wrong. You're harassing her unfairly," she said, her voice calm, yet resolute. Hollister didn't respond. His focus was solely on Lorraine, blinded by racial bias. Lorraine bent slightly toward Jalen, whispering, "Stay calm, baby. Watch me. Don't react. Keep your hands visible." She understood that her nephew needed guidance in this moment of public harassment. Jalen's small hands trembled as he held hers, absorbing every lesson about composure, survival, and dignity in the face of extreme racism. Around them, parents and other spectators began pulling out phones, recording Hollister's aggressive behavior. Every gesture, every word, every threatening stance became evidence of systemic prejudice. Lorraine knew that the presence of witnesses could be pivotal. The act of recording alone could protect her and document the blatant injustice being carried out. Hollister's partner, slightly shorter and stockier, mirrored his aggression. They moved in tandem, a wall of intimidation, each movement designed to assert dominance over Lorraine solely based on her race. "Don't argue. You're just making things worse," Hollister barked. The words weren't about law enforcement. They were a public display of power, rooted in racial bias. Lorraine kept her hands raised slightly, palms out, signaling compliance. Her calm black composure contrasted sharply with Hollister's white aggression. She had spent years teaching federal recruits about handling hostile situations with composure. Now, she was applying those same lessons personally. turning her training into a shield against public humiliation and extreme racism. Jalen peeked up at her, eyes wide. Lorraine offered a gentle nod. "It's okay, baby. We're okay. Just watch me. Don't say anything unless I tell you to." Her voice, steady and reassuring, carried the weight of experience and authority. The crowd could sense it. A black woman, maintaining poise under fire, instructing her young nephew on surviving bias. Meanwhile, the murmurs in the crowd grew louder. People whispered about the officer's extreme behavior, the bias so blatant that it was almost shocking. Some parents exchanged looks of disbelief, while teens filming on their phones captured every moment. Lorraine's calm presence drew attention, making Hollister's racism even more pronounced in comparison. Hollister took another step closer, pointing directly at Lorraine, his voice rising. "Step aside or we'll take action. You think your fancy credentials make you special? Doesn't mean a thing to me." The aggression was both physical and verbal, designed to intimidate, degrade, and humiliate. Lorraine's training in federal law enforcement allowed her to read every subtle movement, anticipating the officer's next move. Without escalating the situation, Helen Ashford, noticing the excessive aggression, stepped closer. "Sir, she hasn't done anything wrong. Stop harassing her," she said, her tone steady, refusing to cower in the face of authority. Hollister ignored her, but the fact that witnesses were speaking up began to create a barrier around Lorraine, giving her a small buffer of protection. Lorraine's mind worked rapidly. She was black, a federal trainer, fully aware that every word and gesture of Hollister's was not just bias, it was evidence. She maintained her posture, carefully guiding Jalen, ensuring his safety while subtly encouraging the crowd to observe, to record, to bear witness. The extreme racism was unmistakable, public, and impossible to hide. The tension escalated as Hollister's body language grew more aggressive, his finger pointing, voice rising, his smirk betraying satisfaction in his assumed superiority. Lorraine's calm demeanor highlighted the contrast. The extreme racism on display was now evident to everyone around. Parents murmured, teens recorded, and Jalen clung tightly to his aunt, learning an unspoken lesson about dignity, survival, and the pervasiveness of prejudice. Every second stretched, the baseball field transformed from a place of recreation into a stage showcasing systemic bias and harassment. Lorraine's poise, coupled with the presence of witnesses, began turning the tide, though the danger and humiliation were still very real. She remained steadfast, black, mid-40s, teaching by example that even in the face of blatant racism, composure, observation, and preparation were powerful tools. The baseball field, once a place of carefree play, had become a tense stage of confrontation. Lorraine Mitchell, black, mid-40s, dressed in her navy polo and khakis, stood with unwavering poise. Her 9-year-old nephew, Jalen, clung tightly to her hand, trembling slightly, but trusting her every movement. Officer Craig Hollister, white, late 30s, his dark navy uniform crisp and badge glinting, paced aggressively. His smirk replaced by a scowl that revealed his frustration at Lorraine's composed resistance. "You think you can just stand there and defy me?" Hollister barked, stepping closer, his finger pointing sharply. His voice carried the weight of extreme racial bias, dismissing every ounce of Lorraine's professionalism. The crowd could see it. This was not law enforcement. This was prejudice dressed in authority. "People like you don't get to run around here acting important. Step aside before I make you." Lorraine's voice remained calm, but firm. "Officer, I'm fully cooperating. There's no reason for this, she said, maintaining eye contact. Her composure was a deliberate counterbalance to Hollister's aggression, showing both Jalen and the witnesses how to remain dignified under extreme harassment. Hollister's partner, shorter and stockier, mirrored the aggression. Circling Lorraine like predators, they moved as a unit, a wall of intimidation, their combined presence designed to instill fear. Each gesture, each sharp movement, reinforced the power dynamics fueled by racism. Don't give me that. You think your training or your badge means anything to me? It doesn't. You're just another problem, Hollister shouted, his tone dripping with prejudice. Jalen's small hands trembled as he pressed against Lorraine. She bent slightly, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. It's okay, baby. Just watch me. Don't argue. Don't move too fast. Just stay calm, she whispered. Every word was a lesson in survival and resilience, teaching him how to navigate a world that often judged people by race rather than character. Parents and spectators murmured among themselves, some pulling their children back, others recording the scene with their phones. Helen Ashford, white, in a light pastel blouse, stepped forward, her voice steady. Sir, she's done nothing wrong. You're harassing her unfairly. Hollister barely acknowledged her presence, his focus fixed on Lorraine. Lorraine's mind raced, cataloging every witness, every movement, every word. She understood that these details would become crucial evidence. The extreme racism was evident in the way Hollister towered over her, his body language aggressive, his words demeaning. It wasn't about law or justice. It was about asserting dominance over a black woman, publicly humiliating her, and demonstrating power. Hollister's face twisted with frustration as Lorraine didn't flinch. Step aside, or I'll make you move, he threatened, gesturing toward his patrol car. His partner mirrored the statement, amplifying the intimidation. The onlookers could feel the tension radiating from them. Every step, every movement screamed racial bias, and yet Lorraine remained a symbol of calm and strength. Jalen peeked up at Lorraine. Her training as a federal law enforcement instructor wasn't just theoretical. It was being applied in real time, demonstrating the power of composure and awareness in the face of blatant racism. The officers moved closer, attempting to create a barrier, to assert physical dominance. Hollister's smirk returned as he barked. You think you're untouchable because you train the feds? Doesn't matter. You'll learn your place. The prejudice in his tone was unmistakable, targeting her not for any law she had broken, but purely because of her race. Lorraine remained steadfast, black, mid-40s, projecting calm authority. She knew the crowd and the recordings would become a record of Hollister's extreme racial bias. Every bystander could now see the contrast. A professional, trained, law-abiding black woman standing tall, facing aggression rooted in prejudice, while a white officer misused his power in broad daylight. The scene escalated further as Hollister reached for his radio, gesturing for backup. Lorraine's keen awareness picked up the subtle signals he intended to intensify the harassment. She subtly guided Jalen, keeping him close, ensuring his safety, while mentally preparing for the next steps. Each action and word of hers was carefully measured, designed to de-escalate yet document the extreme racism and abuse of authority. Parents and bystanders whispered, some openly criticizing the officers. A few older kids continued recording, their devices capturing every angle. Hollister's extreme bias was now fully exposed, visible to everyone, leaving no doubt that this was not an ordinary traffic stop or public interaction. It was a racially charged power play. Lorraine's patience, composure, and strategic thinking created a powerful image. A black woman, mid-40s, fully trained and aware, standing against public humiliation, guiding her young nephew and showing that dignity and resilience could survive even the most aggressive racial harassment. Every word, every movement, every recording would later serve as undeniable proof of systemic bias and personal courage. The air at the baseball field had thickened with tension, each second stretching longer than the last. Lorraine Mitchell, black, mid-40s, in her navy polo and khakis, remained calm, her stance firm, while her 9-year-old nephew, Jalen, clung to her side, visibly anxious yet trusting every subtle movement she made. Around them, bystanders murmured, some recording on their phones, capturing the unfolding scene of extreme racial harassment. Officer Craig Hollister, white, late 30s, pacing aggressively, gestured toward his radio. Within minutes, additional officers arrived, dark navy uniforms crisp, badges gleaming. Each new arrival seemed to amplify the intimidation rather than diffuse it. Hollister's partner moved in close, mirroring his aggression, while other officers formed a loose perimeter, creating a visual wall of authority aimed squarely at Lorraine. "You think you can just stand here and act all superior?" Hollister shouted, pointing at her. "You think your fancy federal credentials make you untouchable? Step aside or I'll handle this my way." His voice was harsh, laced with racial prejudice. Every word and gesture was designed to belittle and humiliate a black woman in public. Lorraine's expression remained calm, measured, projecting control. She raised a hand slightly, in a gesture of compliance, while subtly guiding Jalen closer to her. "Stay calm, baby. Keep your hands visible," she whispered. Her tone was soft, yet authoritative, a mix of reassurance and teaching. A live demonstration of handling extreme bias under public scrutiny. The arriving officers, unaware of Lorraine's role as a federal law enforcement trainer, relied on assumptions and racial profiling. Their body language, crossed arms, leaning forward, aggressive steps, spoke volumes. They weren't enforcing the law. They were asserting dominance based on race. Jalen's small hands trembled, gripping his aunt's arm. Lorraine bent slightly to meet his gaze, whispering, "Watch me, baby. Don't say a word. Just observe and stay safe." Her words carried a weight of experience and authority, teaching him survival strategies in the face of blatant racism. The bystanders, initially passive, began to react. Helen Ashford, white, in a light pastel blouse, stood firmly nearby. "Officer, you're harassing her. She's done nothing wrong," she said, her voice calm yet forceful. Hollister ignored her, focused solely on Lorraine, but the growing number of witnesses created a subtle buffer of accountability. Hollister, visibly frustrated by Lorraine's lack of intimidation, attempted to escalate. "You think you're better than everyone else? Doesn't matter who you know or what you do, you'll learn your place." His words dripped with bias, and the crowd could feel the hostility radiating from him. Every movement, every shouted word, highlighted the extreme racism at play. Lorraine's awareness was heightened. She noted the positioning of each officer, their body language, their expressions. This was crucial. Each subtle action and word would later serve as evidence of systemic bias. She subtly shifted, ensuring Jalen remained shielded while still under her guidance, showing that composure could coexist with vigilance. Some bystanders began recording more actively, understanding the significance of what they were witnessing. The juxtaposition was clear. A calm, professional, trained black woman facing a group of officers, using their authority to intimidate and humiliate based solely on race. Hollister stepped closer, lowering his voice slightly, but keeping the venom intact. "You better cooperate, or we'll make this worse." His partner mirrored the threat, reinforcing the implicit racial hierarchy he assumed he had the right to impose. Lorraine held her ground, refusing to let fear dictate her actions. Her posture, calm and upright, served as a living lesson to Jalen and to all who were watching, that even in the face of extreme racism, maintaining composure and documenting events could be a form of resistance. The crowd's tension grew as they witnessed the officer's aggression. Parents pulled children back, teens recorded every angle, and the overall atmosphere was thick with anticipation and outrage. The extreme racial bias in the officer's behavior was unmistakable, and Lorraine's calm demeanor highlighted the stark contrast. Minutes stretched, the officer shifting slightly, attempting to unsettle her. Lorraine, aware of the legal and personal implications, continued to guide Jalen, reinforcing safety and calm. She knew that every action, every word, every recorded moment would later play a crucial role in exposing the officer's misconduct and systemic bias. By maintaining poise, Lorraine demonstrated that even when facing multiple aggressors motivated by racism, strategic calm, documentation, and awareness could turn the tables, creating undeniable evidence while protecting the innocent, her nephew included. The baseball field had transformed into a spectacle of tension and conflict. Lorraine Mitchell, black, mid-40s, in her navy polo and khakis, stood resolute, her posture calm yet commanding, guiding her 9-year-old nephew, Jalen, through the storm of racial intimidation. Jalen clung to her side, wide-eyed and anxious, but he trusted her implicitly, mirroring her calm through sheer observation. Around them, a crowd had gathered, some parents shielding their children, others recording every moment on their phones, capturing a raw display of extreme racism in real time. Officer Craig Hollister, white, late 30s, had reached the limits of his composure, frustration flashing across his face. "Step aside. You're making this worse for yourself," he barked, gesturing aggressively, his movements exaggerated to assert dominance. His partner, mirroring the aggression, stepped in closer, forming a wall of intimidation. Every glance, every gesture was laden with bias, targeting Lorraine not for any crime, but for the color of her skin and her perceived audacity to exist with authority and composure in public. Lorraine maintained her stance, her black composure unshaken. "Officer, I'm cooperating. There's no reason for this escalation," she said, her voice steady, measured, resonating with both authority and calm. She subtly shifted, guiding Jalen behind her slightly to shield him from potential harm. Her experience as a federal trainer had taught her that remaining calm, observing every movement, and documenting each interaction was the best defense against unwarranted aggression. The crowd began whispering, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Parents exchanged looks of disbelief, teens filming from multiple angles, capturing the overt display of prejudice. Every bystander could see the stark contrast. A professional black woman standing firmly against the abuse of power fueled by racial bias. Hollister's frustration escalated, his tone thick with racial prejudice. "You think your fancy federal credentials make you special? Doesn't matter. You're just like the rest of them. Trouble waiting to happen." He leaned forward, voice rising, attempting to humiliate Lorraine publicly. The venom in his words and the aggression in his posture made the extreme racism impossible to ignore. Lorraine's eyes scanned the crowd, noting potential witnesses and recording devices. She knew that each recording, each person observing, could serve as evidence of Hollister's misconduct. Her training had prepared her for moments like this, transforming what could have been a frightening encounter into a controlled environment of documentation and resilience. Jalen's small hands trembled as he held hers tightly. Lorraine knelt slightly, looking him in the eyes. "Watch me, baby. Don't react. Stay calm. This is how you handle unfairness," she whispered. The lesson wasn't just about survival in the moment. It was about understanding systemic bias, learning how to navigate it, and recognizing the power of composure under extreme pressure. Nearby, Helen Ashford, white, in her pastel blouse and beige slacks, stepped closer, her tone firm yet calm. "Sir, you're harassing her unfairly. She hasn't done anything wrong," she said, her presence creating an additional layer of accountability. Hollister ignored her, but the witnesses now forming around Lorraine made it increasingly difficult for the officers to act without scrutiny. Hollister's partner moved to the side, gesturing toward Lorraine as if trying to intimidate her into submission. "Don't think we won't escalate this," he said, his voice heavy with implicit racial bias. Every movement from the officers reinforced the pattern of discrimination, their behavior motivated not by law enforcement, but by the color of Lorraine's skin and the perceived challenge she represented to their authority. Lorraine kept her hands slightly raised, signaling compliance, while mentally cataloging each word, each gesture, each subtle infraction of protocol. Her calm demeanor in the face of public humiliation amplified the officers' extreme racism, making it visible to everyone present. The contrast was stark and undeniable. A black woman standing her ground with dignity, while white officers attempted to assert dominance through intimidation and harassment. As the minutes stretched, more bystanders began recording, whispering among themselves about the overt racial bias they were witnessing. Lorraine's strategic calm transformed the encounter into a teaching moment, not just for Jalen, but for everyone observing. Her poise, her guidance, her subtle yet calculated actions created a living lesson in confronting racism, documenting injustice, and maintaining personal integrity under duress. The tension was palpable. Hollister's face twisted with frustration, his voice sharp with veiled anger. "Step aside. You're making things worse for yourself." Yet Lorraine didn't flinch. Black, mid-40s, fully trained, she remained a beacon of calm, turning the extreme racism aimed at her into evidence, lessons, and public awareness. Every phone camera rolling, every witness whispering, and every gesture from Lorraine added layers to the undeniable narrative. Extreme racism was being enacted publicly, but resilience, strategy, and documentation could stand as a counterforce to abuse. By standing firm, protecting Jalen, and maintaining her dignity, Lorraine demonstrated that even in the face of overt, aggressive racial bias, a composed black woman could assert her humanity, authority, and survival. The baseball field was now a hub of tension, recordings, and whispers. Lorraine Mitchell, black, mid-40s, in her navy polo and khakis, remained calm, every movement deliberate, guiding her 9-year-old nephew, Jalen, who clung to her side, wide-eyed and anxious. Around them, bystanders continued filming, their devices capturing each moment of blatant racial bias. Officer Craig Hollister, white, late 30s, visibly frustrated, had reached a boiling point. "You think you're untouchable? "You'll learn your place," he barked, gesturing aggressively, his partner echoing the threats. The extreme racism in their actions was undeniable. They were targeting Lorraine not for any wrongdoing, but because of her race and perceived challenge to their authority. Lorraine's posture remained upright and composed. "I'm cooperating, officer. There's no need for escalation," she said, her voice steady. Every word, every measured movement was a counter to the officer's harassment. She subtly shifted, positioning Jalin behind her, ensuring his safety, while also demonstrating control in a situation designed to intimidate. The crowd had grown. Parents shielded their children. Teens filmed actively, and older bystanders whispered among themselves. Clearly disturbed by the racial dynamics playing out before them, Helen Ashford, white, in her light pastel blouse, stood nearby, her tone firm. "Sir, you're harassing her. She's done nothing wrong." Hollister ignored her, but the growing number of witnesses meant the officer's misconduct was now public, documented from multiple angles. Backup officers arrived, dark navy uniforms crisp, badges glinting, forming a larger perimeter around Lorraine. Their presence, rather than easing the tension, intensified it. Hollister's frustration was visible as he barked orders, his bias on full display. Every gesture, every shouted command emphasized the extreme racism fueling the encounter. Lorraine, fully aware of the cameras and witnesses, maintained her composure. She subtly directed Jalin to stay close, whispering, "Stay calm, baby. Watch and learn. This is how we handle unfair treatment." Her words weren't just for him. They were a living demonstration to the entire crowd, illustrating resilience and strategic awareness in the face of blatant prejudice. The officers attempted to assert dominance, but the growing number of recordings and witnesses created a buffer against further abuse. Hollister's extreme racial bias was now on display for everyone to see. A professional black woman, mid-40s, fully trained and composed, being harassed and humiliated in broad daylight. Lorraine's strategic calm paid off. She documented every word, every movement, and every gesture from the officers mentally, preparing for the legal and professional repercussions that would inevitably follow. The extreme racism exhibited by Hollister and his partner was undeniable, and the presence of multiple witnesses made it impossible for them to claim innocence. Jalin, small and anxious, pressed close to his aunt. Lorraine knelt slightly to meet his gaze. "We're almost done, baby. Just stay calm. Everything you're seeing will be remembered," she whispered. The moment became a teaching opportunity, a lesson in resilience and awareness, showing how to confront extreme bias with dignity and strategy. As the officers realized the mounting evidence against them, their aggression faltered slightly. Hollister's face twisted with frustration, realizing that his extreme racism and misuse of authority were now fully documented. The presence of multiple witnesses, recordings, and Lorraine's calm authority had shifted the balance of power, exposing the officer's misconduct to the public and the law. The situation slowly began to de-escalate as higher authorities were contacted. Lorraine's federal training and awareness meant that every interaction was captured accurately, ensuring accountability. The extreme racism that had been so aggressively displayed was now being countered by evidence, strategic calm, and public documentation. In the end, Lorraine stood tall, black, mid-40s, a professional and survivor, demonstrating that dignity, awareness, and composure could overcome even the most aggressive acts of racial bias. Jalin clung to her, learning a lesson he would never forget. In the face of extreme racism, strength, strategy, and calm could turn a moment of public humiliation into undeniable proof and eventual justice. The video captured the entire ordeal, a testament to systemic issues in law enforcement, the prevalence of racial bias, and the power of strategic composure. Lorraine's actions, calm yet deliberate, ensured that those who tried to humiliate her would face accountability.